We're going to go ahead and transition now into our message for today. In preparation for the message, we have a short video. So please enjoy the video and prepare, use it to prepare your heart for the message today.
It shows you the way you should go. Listen to my voice. I'm traveling with you, quietly leading. You are not alone. Sometimes the path is dark. It brings confusion. It invites fear. You don't want to fall. The obstacles come. The paths don't seem clear. You haven't gone that way before. No one wants to be lost. There are many ways to turn. Which way do you go? Listen to me. I can clear the way. I can open the path. I can show you where to put your feet. I will instruct you in the way to go. I will watch over you. You will know when you've arrived and when you've followed the right path. I've been with you on the journey. I've helped you find the way. We are here together. Guidance. It's my promise to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's really wonderful to see all of you today. It's so funny, I walked into the church and every single person that sees me is like, "You're here? I thought you were gone." Apparently I didn't communicate very well when I was going to be gone and when I was going to be here. But I'm here. I'm leaving again tomorrow, though, so our whole family will be gone next Sunday, and we have a great guest speaker lined up for you guys. This little video was based off of several Bible verses of God's promises to be with us and to guide us. And I love that reminder that that is a promise of God's, that we're not abandoned and that God is always working in our life. So our topic is recognizing how God guides me. Because even though God has promised to guide us, I think sometimes it's hard to believe it. And we don't always see it, even though it might be happening right in front of our eyes. So I think learning how to recognize how God guides us is valuable. And this is part of our first statement in our vision, which is that we are a place where people from all walks of life can find love, acceptance, inspiration, guidance, purpose, joy, and fulfillment. So I feel like that the first topics that we've covered already about love and acceptance and inspiration, these are really things that open up people's hearts, and people need to feel that when they come to a new place, or we need to feel that when we come to a place we've been to many, many times. It's really a human need to feel love and acceptance and inspiration. And I feel like now we're transitioning more to the what do you do with that? That along with the inspiration and love and acceptance, we also need guidance. We need to know what to do with the love and acceptance and inspiration. And then we'll go more into finding our purpose, and then joy and fulfillment. What actions do we take that lead us into the kind of life that we want for ourselves and that we want for this world? So this is a little bit of a transition message, I feel. So kind of the point of that video is that God is always looking for ways and opportunities to point us in the right direction, to help us sometimes get back on track, and to also take advantage of opportunities that will move us forward. Really, for myself, I felt like it actually took me quite a while to accept that God is guiding me. I think I was kind of like, okay, I'm sure he is. But it took me a while to accept it. I was for quite a while, I was more on the intellectual path that, no, my life is of course a product of the choices that I make and the circumstances that I'm in, or the choices that my parents have made that led me to my circumstances. And I felt like I could point out, well, my life is like this because I made that choice 5 years ago, or because of this or because of that. And I felt like I could see how it always pointed back to me, and that I was responsible and I was empowered, and sometimes it was my fault too. But I really took it from that perspective that, no, it's me. And I think that it's important to feel that you are an owner of your life, and for certainly the choices that we make will lead us in a certain direction. And I really didn't want to go too into the mystical or superstitious realm. I really sometimes get frustrated with people who always can blame their circumstances on somebody else or on God, or it was just my fate that I ended up, crashing into the car in front of me. So I always want to take it more to the side of, my responsibility, my choices direct my life. But actually, now looking back, I can see that so much of my life was prepared for me, and that my steps were guided, and that I actually have God to thank for much of that. And now I'm much more of a fan of the theory that God is always working in our lives. So, actually when people would ask Mike and I, so how did you come to become pastors here? Then we could say, we did this soul searching, and we read the Divine Principle and did a prayer condition, and after weighing the pros and cons, then we felt like this was the best choice, and we feel like it was really the right choice. And all of that, I feel, is true. Also, though, now I can see that there is actually so much more behind the scenes that allowed us to even come to the place where we were able to make the choice to come here. And not just to be here, but guide us in the direction that we're going now. And as much as we'd like to say, oh, it's me, I made the right choice, or I created the circumstance, actually we see that it's really only like 5%. And that so much of our path and so much of our life has been guided and prepared by God. So I feel like it's really a matter of perspective and how you look at it. When I was doing my soul searching a few years ago, I was really looking for proof that God exists. Like, I want to see it in front of my face. I don't want to just believe. I want proof that God exists. So I would look at I was trying to find out what's the genesis of life? Like, what are the possible circumstances that life could have arisen and then multiplied and expanded, I wanted to see how God could have created that. Anyway, it was like a lot of nitpicking, trying to find proof that God exists. But I realized if I switch my perspective, what isn't proof that God exists? Because now I see, well, if God didn't exist, there would be nothing. And actually every single thing, the air that I breathe, the trees that are outside, the materials that we have to build our buildings and our cars, everything is proof that God exists. So I feel like I've had that kind of a perspective shift on God guiding my life as well. So it's one thing to, believe in God's promise that God is guiding us, but how do we recognize it? How do we see it when it happens? How do we know to act on the guidance that we get? I've come up with a list of several different ways that I feel that God guides us in our life. And I think that everybody is different, so some people maybe receive guidance more in one or two ways, and other people may receive guidance in other ways. And I may not have covered your way, but I think this is hopefully helping to open the door to believe that God is working in my life. And if I'm open to it, then I will be able to take advantage of it, that I'll receive the blessings of that. So, the ways that God guides me. One is the still small voice. And if you were here a few weeks ago, I actually gave a whole message on the still small voice. This is one little line in the Bible that came from the story of Elijah. You might remember the story that, Elijah was basically on the brink of death. He was outcast. He was being chased by the king. He had a warrant on his head, and all of his friends and companions were killed or lost. And he said, "How can I go forward?" And then God says, "Well, come out to the entrance of the cave and listen." And he goes out to the entrance, and a huge, great windstorm comes, and it's howling winds, but God's voice wasn't in the wind. And then there's an earthquake that comes and rattles it, and the rocks are falling off the mountain, but God's voice wasn't in the mountain. And then a fire came and roared across the land, but God's voice wasn't in the fire. And then in the silence after all of that, Elijah could hear the still small voice of God. And God said, "Okay, are you listening now? This is what I have planned for you. You're going to do this and this, and you're going to go find these people, and they're going to help you, and in 7 years, you're going to transform everything." And because he was listening for the still small voice, then he could actually hear what God wanted to say to him. For myself, I shared that sometimes for me, it's in these moments of pause in my life where I've completed something and I'm looking for the next thing to do, or maybe something I was trying to work on came to a dead end, and I'm like, well, what do I do now? And I feel like it's in those moments where I'm just kind of floating, or I'm paused, that God gives my little nudges. Come closer. You're my daughter. I love you. These kind of still small voice experiences. And it might be different for you, but I really believe that this is one way that God really wants to speak with us. This is another quote from Isaiah. "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way. Walk in it.'" Another way I believe that God gives us guidance is through the truth. And this can be an understanding of the Bible, understanding of the divine principle and the explanation of the Bible, even through history, the truth and the evidence of how history is played out. God can teach us through the written word and through evidence in the past. And this is actually where I feel like our role as a community comes in our vision statement, that, if people want to find guidance here, I believe that God is guiding every person on this planet, if they're open to it, that they come closer to God, that they do something great with their life. But we have it in our vision statement that we want people to find guidance here. But I can't always say that I feel qualified with my knowledge and my wisdom and my life experiences to guide every person that comes in this door. I think that would be very pretentious of me, arrogant maybe. But what I feel like that what we do have to offer to people is God's word. And we have the divine principle. And we have an explanation that if people look at it and they apply it to their life, that they will find God's guidance. This is from Psalm 119. Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path. I really love this analogy because many times we feel like I'm in the dark. I don't know which way to go. There was that image in the video of the hiker, and he's looking this way, and then the camera pans, and then there's another way to go, and the camera pans, and there's another way to go. Which way do we go? But God's word is like a lamp for our feet. It lights the way, lights our path the way that we should go. Another way that I feel God guides us is through our conscience. Actually, there's many quotes that Reverend Moon has given that says, your conscience is in some ways it's like even closer to you than God. It can be in the place of God in your life. Your conscience is you. And it's like your original part of you that knows exactly who you are, knows exactly what you were created for, and knows exactly what you should do in this situation. But so many times our own justifications or our own selfish desires or our own petty things get in the way, and we follow those things. But God gives us a conscience that's like his little compass, right? God puts a compass inside each one of us that's always, if we're paying attention, will guide us in the right way. I believe that our conscience does things like guides us to help people who are in need, to keep our commitments. Sometimes we can justify our way out of keeping our commitments that we made to people that we love or to a purpose that is good. But we can't do that without some consequences on our heart, right? There's always the compass that says, this is what you said you would do. This is what we have to do. And I believe our conscience also guides us to repair our relationships that sometimes we've damaged or we haven't paid enough attention to. Because this is something that we're created for, right? The very beginning of the divine principle talks about relationships and how everything exists within relationships and for relationships. And if there's a breakdown in a relationship, the principle is not working in our life. We're not letting it work in our life. So our conscience is always guiding us to repair relationships. I have one quote that I think pertains especially towards the helping people and seeing God's guidance through that. I want you to be always humble, kind, loving and understanding of others, even though the person visiting you may be a cross or evil person, even unforgivably evil. God can then turn him and use him to help you, to make you a success. You can never mistreat anyone, however shabby or ragged looking that person may be. And you must think that whomever you meet, whomever you run across, has something to do with your fate. You must not mistreat them. More than anything else, you must not be nonchalant. You must not treat them as if they had nothing to do with you. I feel like in today's world, it's kind of a sin of omission, right? We're not necessarily hurting people. We're not going out and trying to damage people's relationships or hurt people in any way. But I feel like it's so easy to walk down the street and pass somebody without even looking at their face. Or it's very easy when you're online and there's a conversation to say something without consideration for who that person is as a child of God. I love this quote that kind of coming from this perspective that if God is real, everything is evidence of God. And if God is guiding us in our life, and that's God's promise, then God is guiding us in almost every aspect of our life, even through the people that we might pass on the street. They may not be pivotal, but they could be. But there might be something in that person that guides our day or teaches us a lesson. So I like this. Whomever you run across has something to do with your fate because they're another child of God, because they are our family. And the last one that I have, maybe you have an additional list of your own, and I couldn't think of a short way to write it, so this is what I wrote. Acceptance of where I am and the faith that God will work with where I am at. I feel like sometimes this is the hardest part for us because in our faith we have such high ideals. Ideal family, perfect love between husband and wife, and perfect absolute love and faith and obedience from our children. No. But these are the things that we strive for and we talk about, and we have this in our mind. And when we look at the reality that's right in front of me, that's in the bed next to me, or that's in the mess on the floor in the kitchen from my daughter, that sometimes we can be like, oh, I wish it wasn't like this. I wish I was here. I wish I was at the ideal. Or we might be spending our time looking backwards and saying, oh, I wish I hadn't said that to that person. I wish I'd made this choice when I was younger. I wish I hadn't gone out with my friends and done stupid things. I wish that I'd listened to God's guidance. You know, I feel like we can so easily be one place or the other. We can be caught up in what already happened, or we can be caught up looking at the future and what we want it to be and how I wish I wasn't here right now. Anything but where I'm at right now. But God can't work with what's not happening right now. So when we're discontent with our life, or we're constantly regretting something in the past, or wishing for something in the future, we actually don't allow any space for God to show us the opportunities and lessons that He has for us right now. And I think that that's something that we just have to accept. I am who I am. I'm where I'm at right now. Maybe we can think maybe it's not where I should be. But God knows where we're at. He knows how we came to be there. And God has compassion on us. And I don't think God is ever like, forget that person. They screwed up one too many times. Every person is a child of God. And God has a concern and a love for each person. So I really believe that wherever you're at, there's something that God has for you right now, right where you are, to bring you closer to Him. And it's not to say, forget the ideal, forget what you're striving for, and just be happy. That's what you've got, so just be happy with it. No, I think that God does want us to move forward. But if we're only thinking about where we want to be, then we'll never see the opportunity to move us forward. So here's a quote from Proverbs. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. So we may know where we want to be, but we don't always know how to get there. But if we're paying attention, God can open the door. Okay, first step first. This is another beautiful one, familiar. This is from Psalm 23, just the first couple of lines. The Lord is my shepherd. Have you ever actually been with a herd of sheep? I feel like this is conceptual for so many people, but my neighbor owned sheep. And when she was like a world traveler, so she would be gone for several weeks or a month at a time, and then I would be the shepherd. And the shepherd has to do a lot to take care of their sheep. But I love this. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Right? I always filled up the water. I always put the food there. I always brought them into the shade if it was too hot outside, too humid. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So I love this, that God is my shepherd, and he is guiding me in the way that he knows I should go. And if I'm one of those stubborn sheep that doesn't want to be guided, then I'm going to be stuck in the mud, or I'm going to be hot in the sun, or I'm going to be left without food and water. But if I follow my shepherd, I'll be led on paths of righteousness. And then I think I have one more. Okay, here it is. This is from James, chapter 1, verse 5 through 8. Oops, sorry. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all, without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And this reminds me of the ask and you will receive, knock and it will be open to you. But look at this next part. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. That's a little bit harsh, isn't it? But I feel like I saw that in myself so many times. I'm looking for a sign that God exists. God, do you exist? I don't know if you exist, but if you give me a sign, I'll believe you exist. But then not really believing that I'll get a sign because I don't really believe that God exists, you know? Maybe some of you know people like that or have experiences of being a person like that. I read this quote actually by Reverend Moon that said, you know, if you ask God for guidance, he'll give it to you. Imagine that your son or your daughter comes up to you and is hungry and asks for bread. Would you give them a rock? No. You know, what if your son or daughter came up to you and asked for a cup of water? Would you give them a cup of oil? No. And he said, if even we, who are fallen people who don't know God's way, know how to give to our children what they ask for, don't you think that God knows? Don't you think that God knows how to give what we ask for? But we have to believe that. And I will say, I believe that even though many people have a hard time with this, have a hard time to really believe without a doubt that God is here and that I'm here for a reason, that there is a path forward, I still believe God is working, but it's just much harder for us to recognize it and to take advantage of it. And that kind of leads me to my last point, which I really believe. I believe that God's guidance, spiritual fortune, whatever you want to call it, comes more often when we are living in a way that warrants it. When we are aligned, when we are living in a way that is aligned with God's heart and God's will, then we open up that space for God to work more, to speak more, for us to see it and hear it more in our life. This is a really great quote from Reverend Moon. A selfless and public-minded person will prosper because he is the image of God. You know, Mother recently has been talking about how she's saying, do these couple things. Tribal messiahship, take care of our ancestors. If we just do these simple things, then you are in alignment. And when you are in alignment, you will see miracles happen. It will just come naturally. The blessings will flow, right? When we're in alignment, then water can flow down a channel. But if the channel is clogged or if it's bent the wrong way, it's going to be really hard for us to see and feel and hear God's guidance in our life. But a selfless and public-minded person will prosper because he is the image of God. The selfish, self-centered person will decline because he is the opposite of God. This is God's rule. And then this is one more. The history of the dispensation of God in human history is one history. So God's history and our history are not something separate. God hasn't been working separately from us. It's only together. It's all the one and the same. The principle proves this. And we can prove through the principle that God is living in our way of life. God is not the God of concept in our mind, but the living God experienced in our way of life. God's own dispensational history and the history of mankind are not separate and distinct. They are one. So I love this. God is not the God of concept, but the living God who is experienced in our way of life, right? By aligning our hearts and our minds, aligning our actions with what we know to be true, then we can see that God is not separate from us. So I guess the point of all of this is that we don't know how God will speak to us. Many times I didn't even recognize it when it was happening, or how God was guiding my steps. Thank goodness he was, and now I can look back and I can see it. But we don't always know how to make that happen. But the point is that when we make the effort to do what we can do from where we are in our current situation, in our circumstances, but when I make the effort to do what I know, what my conscience tells me to do, then God's blessing and guidance will come more abundantly. That we've opened the door and that we will see it. And it will be like a pleasant surprise, right? Because we can't orchestrate it. But when God works in our life, then it's a great blessing to us. So that's the point, right? We have we want God's guidance. There's ways it can happen. We can't make it happen, but we can create an environment in our life and in our heart that God can guide us. So please join me in prayer. Good morning, most beloved Heavenly Parent. Thank you for another Sunday, another week to be here with our wonderful brothers and sisters, families, children. We all come here for different reasons, Heavenly Parent. Some of us come to worship you. Some of us come to give thanks to you. Some of us come looking for guidance, Heavenly Parent. And I pray that your Spirit can be here, and that each one of us can open up our hearts and minds to the possibility and even to the conviction that you are a loving parent, and that what we ask for, that you will give us. When we look for a way to come closer to you, that you are preparing that way. Heavenly Parent, I pray that we can go into this week with that hope and with that love and with that confidence, and that we can create that environment through our actions, that each one of us can see how we can be kind to somebody, how we can follow through in our commitments to you, how we can become a person that reflects you little by little. And we want to offer this day, offer this service, offer this prayer to you. And I pray in my name, Michael and Jonia Hendrick, a Blessed Central family. Adieu. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, I just, sorry, it's a little bit hard to see, but I just want to give some recognition to Justine and Johanna. They attended the African Diaspora Leadership Conference in Las Vegas recently, and it was really cool. They, representing, mother-daughter team, went there to support the initiative to, see how can we support the efforts that are going in Africa to be able to build a heavenly African nation. So they went representing our community, and it was really awesome. Justine is in Africa right now, actually. And then also, we have a few people who went down to Camp Lone Star this past week. The workshop just concluded, I believe, yesterday or the day before. And they had 70 young people, and I heard that it was a really successful and wonderful workshop down in Texas. Also, we have a couple people, 3, who are attending right now the 7-day Divine Principle Workshop in Las Vegas. And over 300 people are attending this workshop, so it's very, I think, high energy and really exciting workshop. So we're really hoping, we have a couple high schoolers there, so hoping that they really having a great experience. And there's just so many great testimonies are coming out of these workshops. So if you ever have an inclination to go and attend one, please let us know, because we'd love to, support you in making sure that you can get there if you want to be there. Today, I'll be giving a presentation right after service during lunch, and it's called the Who Are We presentation. This is if you're new, or even if you've been a part of our community for many years, you can get a sense of, what we're all about, what our movement is, why do we have unique traditions, why are we different than other churches, and also what's our vision for the future. So I had somebody who attended a month or 2 ago, and she's been a member of our church for 40 years, and she said, I want to join this church again. So it was inspiring for me to see that and experience that. Every week we have a Bible study that's being hosted by Dr. Hendrick. I've heard really great things about it. This week, Dr. Hendrick will actually be in Massachusetts giving a workshop for high schoolers, so he won't actually be here this week, but in general, every week at 7 o'clock, if you're interested in coming, he's got great topics lined up and, really delving into the Bible. And then if you are interested in upcoming Divine Principle retreat or a weekend, there are 7-day workshops, and there are also weekend workshops, and these are usually bundled together with some kind of a, trip or visit to the Grand Canyon or Lake Mead. I know they were doing shows on, like Cirque du Soleil shows. I don't know if they're still doing that, but these are really great opportunities to just delve into the principle. And so these are some upcoming ones. The next one is August 15th to 21st. So if you're interested, please let us know. And then lastly, I just want to thank, I'm sorry, I didn't update the slide. I am not sure who is cooking next week. The Heppels are cooking and cleaning next week, is that correct? Probably, okay. All right, the Heppel family is cooking and cleaning next week. Thank you very much. And then this week, the Fleischers are cooking, and the Workmans and the Vrexys are cleaning. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. It's not an easy thing to do, so grateful every week that different families have volunteered to do this. Thank you so much. Okay, with that being said, you Sunday school children are excused to go. Also, the middle school and high school kids are filming a movie today. I believe it's about Cain and Abel. And they're going to be filming until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's pretty exciting. I look forward to seeing how that turns out.